Welcome back to the Fandom Zone podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back at the Fandom Zone once again, ready to talk more Falcon and the Winter Soldier with my wonderful co-host, wonderful friend, and someone continuing to survive lockdown in Italy, DJ Nick. How you doing, Nick?
Hey, Charles. I'm doing wonderful. Super happy to be back with you today. And may I wish all our Jewish listeners out there a very happy Passover.
Yes.
As this weekend, of course, kicked off Passover. So, Chag Sameach to all our wonderful Jewish listeners out there. And I hope you're having a sweet and safe Passover.
Exactly. And obviously, here, those of us who are Christians, we also are going to be celebrating Easter here in the coming weeks. We have Good Friday coming up. Then Easter's. So all of you who celebrate that holiday, my celebrations to you as well.
Yeah, the two holidays tend to be very close together in the sense that Passover either tends to be shortly before or shortly after Christian Easter. Right. So it's also because, fun fact, just to put a little bit of trivia there before we get into what we're here to talk about really, apparently the Last Supper that Jesus had with his apostles, they were actually celebrating the Jewish Passover.
Right. Because, hey, here's a little tidbit for everybody who doesn't remember. Jesus was Jewish.
What? A shock. I'm clutching my pearls.
What? I know, right? Just a little reminder for everybody. If maybe you didn't pick up on that while reading the Bible, just saying. Maybe I'm speaking a little out of turn. I don't know. But anyways, you guys don't care about that. But you do care, hopefully, about the Falcon and Winter Soldier, right? So here at episode 211, we're going to be discussing the Star-Spangled Man.
Yes.
And in parentheses, we'll put with a plan, right? Even though that wasn't the episode title. So this was the second episode of the Falcon and Winter Soldier, written by Michael Castelline, directed once again by Kari Skogland. And this was a very interesting one because we got the introduction of some new characters. We finally got to fully meet Wyatt Russell, son of Kurt Russell, as we talked about last time, as the new Captain America, John Walker. And this episode we get the introduction of Clay Bennett, who played Battlestar, a.k.a. Lemar Hoskins, who is a new character here. And lastly, we also get the introduction of a couple characters that may have some future importance after the series ends. So we get the introduction of Carl Lumbly, one of my favorite character actors.
He is amazing.
As Isaiah Bradley, who is fantastic as always. I've definitely lived up to all the expectations I have for him. And we get the introduction of Elijah Richardson as Eli Bradley, Isaiah's grandson, who we'll talk about here shortly, has a relation to a super team that seems to be getting set up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with each show. So, lots to talk about. We finally get hey, Sam and Bucky are two leads. We finally get to get the little bit of buddy cop movie feel that we've been all anticipating. And I can't wait to get your thoughts about this, Nick. So right off the bat, any general thoughts that you'd like to share about watching the second episode?
Well, if I could describe this episode, I would say it's a mixture of heart and hilarity, because there were moments where I really found myself literally laughing out loud.
Right.
And I really have to say kudos to the writers for writing such snappy dialogue. And I think that my good buddy Sebastian, as we've ascertained that
because you guys are tight like this,
buddies.
Right?
Yes, exactly. I texted him only saying, "Good job, Seb. You ruled. You're awesome job." No, but Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie have such great chemistry on the screen. They work so well together when it comes to comedic timing. It was hilarious and fantastic to watch. But at the same time, we got a lot of heart and once again, a lot of social commentary when it came to the current situation and state of the world affairs and, a certain trial which is going on in the US right now.
Right.
It made me think of that. And I just thought it was a beautiful balance of action, heart, and as I said, and also very classic style MCU comedic moments. So it was very well balanced, and I really, really enjoyed it. And the lead out really had me on tenterhooks going, what's going to happen next? This is amazing. I love it.
So you would be talking about a certain introduction at the end of Helmut Zemo, the return of Helmut Zemo, Daniel Bruhl's character from Captain America Civil War, would you?
Maybe.
So yeah, this is something that after watching the trailers and whatnot, I've been anticipating. So I'm sure we're gonna have a lot to talk about this episode, but we're gonna have a lot to talk about next episode, I'm guessing as well. We'll just put that out there right now. No surprise there, right? Yeah, I thought this was great. I mean, like I said, there's a lot going on. We get the introduction of so many characters. We finally get to know what the deal is a little bit with John Walker's Captain America as he assumes the role. We're introduced, like I said, to his partner, Lemar Hoskins, who becomes, instead of Bucky, he becomes Battlestar for reasons I'll talk about during our trivia section. And Sam and Bucky not really getting along. Bucky really resenting Sam for giving up the shield and the fact that it resulted in this new Captain America was something that we figured would probably bring these two together, and it's obviously causing some severe friction for reasons we'll discuss. So lots to sift through in this one. And and by the way, a great action sequence involving two trucks on a highway as all four of our heroes duke it out with Kari Morgenthau and the Flag Smashers.
Oh, yes. I love that they upped the ante because already we had an aerial battle in the first episode, which was so epic. And you thought to yourself, how are they going to up the ante in the next episode? What set piece are they going to give us? And they gave us this wonderful set piece of, the people just don't fight on the ground anymore. It has to be something incredibly dangerous where you're on a moving vehicle, be it in the air or on the ground. So,
well, there were some especially tense moments involving the Winter Soldier, Bucky, dangling from the bottom of that one truck.
Yeah, and Falcon, of course, reminding him that a little girl kicked his butt.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, a little girl kicked your ass. Yeah, so I thought that was funny. All right, so trivia, lots to talk about, obviously. But one thing I did want to mention really quickly at the beginning of this episode, I'm sure Nick caught this. I'm sure you spotted this right away. The drum line, the marching band playing at the beginning of this episode played a rendition of a song that's very familiar if you're a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan because, they played a rendition of Star-Spangled Man, which was the song that gets featured in the movie Captain America, the First Avenger. Yeah. That kind of had to start off the episode with a little bit of a smile, right? I'm guessing.
Oh, yes. I thought it was also, though, kind of like, it might have been, World War II where it was very cheesy. Things haven't changed that much in today's world, guys. It is just as cheesy, but just with different instruments and a different setting. Because that's kind of what it reminded me of, because initially Captain America in the First Avenger, it was almost seen as just like purely for show, and there was to boost morale of the troops. And here it's to boost the morale of the people. And so in the very sort of cheesy, I use the words kind of, because for lack of a better term, because it has to all be, lights and explosions and, dancing girls and all this kind of thing. It is, that I
the showmanship is what you're talking about, essentially.
That's the thing, which is the core of America. And a thing that we've often talked about, even when I was in college, is that America are the masters of showmanship. No matter what it is, they make a party or a celebration about it, be it a football game, somebody winning something. It has to be a big parade. And I think that very much encapsulates the concept of showmanship in the U.S., which is something that's very unique to your country, Charles.
Yeah, in this episode, this opening number is certainly a great example of that because what do? They hold it in what appears to be a high school football stadium, and they have a high school marching band band, and a very cool one at that, doing that rendition of the Star-Spangled Man. So, it's very theatrical, and you have the new Captain America, John Walker, running out onto the field, and that sets up this interview, with ABC television. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But I just want to kind of mention that in their trivia section.
Oh, no, it was great fun. I was just loving the fact that we got that call back. I mean, they had to kind of, it was so cool. It's like, it's Captain America. We have to keep the theme alive. So I appreciate it.
Right. Also, if you're wondering about Battlestar, who's this guy? Battlestar first appeared not on Battlestar Galactica, in case you're wondering. He actually first appeared in Captain America Volume 1, number 323, as this nameless member of what was called the Bold Urban Commandos, BUCs, Bucks, get it? And they were associates of John Walker when he was acting as the vigilante known as the Super Patriot that we talked about last week. And when Walker was recruited to become Steve Rogers' replacement as Captain America, Lemar became Walker's partner and adopted the identity first as Bucky in Captain America Volume 1, number 334. Now, later, in Captain America number 341, especially after the writer of Captain America, Mark Gruenwald, who is very, very white, by the way, was informed by Dwayne McDuffie, a black Marvel writer at the time, that Buck isn't exactly a great term to be associated with black men, because it's kind of derogatory and a bit racist.
Yes.
Needless to say. So they changed it. They decided, okay, we won't call him Bucky anymore. And Gruenwald renamed him in issue 341 Battlestar. And he started wearing his own unique costume that wasn't just a knockoff of Bucky's costume from back in the 40s. So that's his deal. And he essentially continued serving as Walker's partner as Captain America until Walker gave the role back to Steve Rogers, following the Captain storyline in Marvel Comics. All right, Isaiah Bradley.
This is a crunchy one.
Yeah, this is something that I think needs some explaining. We get a little bit of information here in this episode, but I thought I'd lay this out a little bit more to put it in its proper context. And if I miss anything, feel free to chime in, Nick, on this. So, doing my research, Isaiah Bradley first appeared in the 2003 limited series Truth, Red, White, and Black, as one of 300 African-American soldiers that were subjected to experiments to recreate the super soldier serum that had previously been used to turn Steve Rogers into Captain America. And this experimentation was essentially a parable of the real-life Tuskegee experiments that were going on, that were held between 1932 and 1972. So 40 years these things were going on, to observe the natural history of untreated syphilis in African-American men who were falsely told that they were receiving free health care from the federal government.
And now you ask yourself why black people are so concerned about getting the vaccine.
Exactly.
Now you wonder, folks. There's your answer.
There is history, and I'm sure there are like a lot of clueless white people out there going, well, why wouldn't they just get the vaccine? And it's like, well, there is this thing where the government was essentially experimenting on black men for 40 years. So maybe there's a reason not to trust the government from their perspective.
Yeah, can you blame them for being gun shy? Definitely.
Yeah, so this is something obviously that needs to be addressed as far as the vaccine goes. In the comics, though, only Bradley and 4 other subjects actually survived the original super soldier trials. So U.S. soldiers ended up executing the camp's commander, because essentially what they did, they got these soldiers from an army camp, and they executed hundreds of other black soldiers that didn't survive the trials or they were left sick by the trials. And then the government told the families that, well, hey, these soldiers died in battle. Yeah. So essentially they lied to their families about what really happened to them. And due to the field missions in Europe and some internal strife, Bradley emerged as the sole survivor of those 5. He steals a spare costume and a shield intended for Captain America before engaging on a suicide mission to destroy the super soldier efforts of the Nazis at the Schwarzebite concentration camp. However, the mission ended when the Germans captured Bradley, and he was brought before Adolf Hitler himself, who decided to dissect him in order to reverse engineer his powers, and then would send the spare parts back to America as a message. But Bradley was later rescued by German insurgents, only to be court-martialed for stealing the Captain America uniform. And he was imprisoned in Leavenworth around 1943, which is a big prison back then.
Wow.
So in 1960, so 17 years later, poor Bradley gets pardoned by President Eisenhower at long last and released. And Isaiah's story actually ends on a more tragic note because the flawed version of the super soldier serum led to neurological degradation, resulting in a condition similar to Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
So this is a really cheery story from Marvel Comics back in the
exactly.
day.
For the kids.
Exactly, it's for the kids, but it's a very interesting one, especially the way that it uses the real-life Tuskegee experiments as a framework, translating this into a story.
I think it's once again an example of how far-reaching Marvel is with its storytelling and how they really tend to take from real-life events and always want to make a message. I think that was one of the things that DC caught on later when it came to this concept. Marvel, almost from the get-go, were always doing this thing of let's make, kind of social commentary with our stuff. And I think that was
the world outside your window, they like to say.
Correct, yes, because I suppose the whole thing was they were living in New York and all you had to do was look outside your window to see what was wrong with the world at the time. So.
Right, especially in the 60s, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, New York, not the best place back then.
No, not at all. Not at all. So I think I got everything as far as Isaiah Bradley. I thought it was important backstory that if you're kind of wondering why this character was introduced, that's why.
Yeah. No, you covered it perfectly, Charles, as usual.
I try. So interestingly, in this episode also introduces Eli Bradley, Isaiah's grandson, who is very interesting because, he first appeared in Young Avengers Volume 1, Number 1. And if you remember us from our WandaVision episodes, talking about Billy and his brother Tommy becoming Young Avengers, and we're going to get later when the Hawkeye series comes out, we're going to get Kate Bishop, who becomes a Young Avenger as the second Hawkeye. So, and we've got Cassie Lang already introduced in Ant-Man, who becomes Stature, a member of the Young Avengers. So it seems more than likely that Marvel is setting up a Young Avengers thing here. And so Eli Bradley has been introduced. So if you're wondering about him, while he was being recruited for the Young Avengers, Eli claimed to have gained superpowers through an emergency blood transfusion from his grandfather. But this was revealed to be a lie because Eli's mother was conceived before Isaiah had undergone those experiments.
Mm.
So Eli later gained his powers artificially with mutant growth hormone, the MGH, which was this kind of like Marvel version of the super steroid.
Yes, that's right.
Instead of HGH, we get MGH, right? Mm-hmm. And this was a legal street drug that caused brief periods of superhuman abilities. So after quitting the team when his MGH powers faded, Eli was gravely wounded by a Kree warrior when he jumped in front of a blast meant for Captain America. So as a result, he received an actual blood transfusion from his grandfather, Isaiah, which granted him the abilities afforded to Isaiah, using the super soldier serum. So essentially, he got those powers for real.
Yeah.
So he could continue as Patriot, which he does to this day.
That's right. Yeah, and I think at this point, if that's the game they're playing, because I wonder sometimes about this, Charles. I mean, I know that Disney and Marvel Studios rarely do things, there is a plan and it's by design. And you think now that we had Wiccan, we've had Speed, we've had Stature, now possibly Patriot.
And we're going to get Hawkeye, yeah.
And Hawkeye, and as I mentioned to you before, I tend to have an affectation for Hulkling, and I very much hope that in the She-Hulk series you might get Hulkling as well.
That's a good. I think that's a great possibility, certainly.
Because obviously he's also a core member of the group. I mean, I'm biased when I say that, but because I just love Hulkling to death.
Well, he ends up hooking up with Wiccan.
So you kind of also get to introduce that as well. If you want to, since Disney was saying they wanted to be progressive and have the whole thing of even having, homosexual superheroes.
Right.
That's the perfect gateway to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And so you might want to start stocking up on all those Young Avengers books. Just saying.
Yes.
A little, for all you comic book collectors out there, this is a little insider tip. All right. So any other trivia you wanted to share before we get going?
Well, there was some fun little on the fun side. There's a fun little Easter egg, which I'm thinking once again is probably not by accident. Baron Zemo's cell number is 2187, and a certain princess in Star Wars was imprisoned in a prison with that same number. And so I'm thinking, since Disney owns Star Wars now.
Right.
It was probably a nice nod to this is the same cell that same number that Princess Leia had, which is 2187. So I think to myself, they're kind of telling us, yeah, guess what? We own Star Wars as well, so we can make these references because we own Star Wars. So that was a fun little reference. Go ahead, Charles.
Well, I was just going to say that's also why we got Good Morning America featured. During the John Walker big rollout, the big ceremony, because Good Morning America is an ABC television, an ABC network program, and Disney owns ABC, so there you go. That's why they can that's why they can use Good Morning America.
I think they were kind of showing off some of their assets here, kind of like, we own these things, so we can do it. We don't have to ask anybody for permission because this is our stuff.
Right, or we don't have to make up anything fictional because we own this and we can use this. Yeah, in the case of Good Morning America.
Yeah, and so I thought it was a fun little thing, a fun little Star Wars nod, if that's what it was. I have a feeling it was. And the other thing was, there's a mention of the power broker, who I wonder might come into play later, because you talked about Battlestar, and in the comics, I believe the power broker is involved when it comes to his powers.
Also for John Walker. That's how he got his powers. Now, interestingly, we'll talk about this here when we get to our second topic, talking about John Walker and Lemar, that at the moment they don't have powers.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be very interesting if introducing the power broker is what gives them their powers, because the power broker did give them, both characters, their powers in the comics.
Yeah. So I thought that was a nice thing to mention in case folks are wondering who the power broker was. I guess he's kind of almost like the tinkerer when it comes to villains, when he kind of supplies everybody with their tech. Right. The power broker tends to do basically the same thing, but he's kind of like dishing out powers. Instead of inventions, he's kind of giving out powers.
Yeah, we kind of need an explanation about, how did these two get superpowers? Well, here's this guy called the power brokers, and that gave them their powers. There you go. Problem solved.
Yes.
It's a very quick, elegant solution, I guess, to explaining how these characters got their powers, I guess.
Well, in Marvel, they tend to kind of have a guy for everything. There's a guy who supplies, like I said, super villains with stuff. Yes. You have the Tinkerer. There's a guy. So Marvel are very clever in that sense of they always have a guy for something.
Yeah. You got problems with time. Well, that means King the Conqueror or Mortis, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
You got problems underwater. Well, you got the Submariner, Namor. So,
yeah.
I get where you're coming from. All right, so if there's nothing else, 4 topics today.
Yes.
So topic number 1, let's talk Sam and Bucky. And we can also throw in Dr. Rayner, who gets to kind of babysit the two after calling them in for an impromptu therapy session because, hey, Bucky missed his, as it turned out. And she's kind of has to suffer as the two engage in a rather childish but fun, to watch at least, stare fight.
Yes. He was hilarious.
All right. So Nick, right off the bat, we get something that we've been waiting for since episode 1. We finally get to see Sam with Bucky and their relationship. And it's very friction-filled because turns out Bucky is not happy with Sam for giving up his shield when he donated it to the Smithsonian in episode 1. And as a result, that shield got turned over rather quickly to a new Captain America. So essentially, Bucky, as it turns out, blames Sam for what he feels is trampling all over Steve Rogers' legacy. But also it turns out to be something a little bit more, as we learned during the discussion with Dr. Rayner.
That's right.
So what did you think of our two lead characters finally together in their buddy cop movie? Or buddy cop TV show?
I thought this was a very elegant way of bringing the two characters together, because you think to yourself, and probably the most logical, because you think to yourself, how are you going to get these two characters who literally don't really want to see each other, or rather it seems to be more on Bucky's side initially, because we'd heard in the first episode that Sam had tried to reach out to him, but Bucky was just not returning his calls.
Right.
So it seemed to be more on Bucky's side of being kind of shutting himself off. But then, obviously when the announcement is made on national TV about this new Captain America, Bucky is like, I've got to have words with that man right now. So he finds a way to.
Yes.
And I love the fact that he's like, well, I would have the session with my therapist. I've got screw it. I'll do something else. I'll go and talk to Sam and give him hell for not being Captain America.
Right, exactly. And that obviously doesn't work out because the two end up getting picked up. And we'll talk about that later by the popos, by the police. Yeah. Because turns out, Bucky missed his federally mandated therapy session, and so he gets himself arrested as a result.
Yeah, and I think maybe he's feeling restless and he wants some action because obviously his Winter Soldier days are over, and so I guess, but I think he just wants something to do rather than have to talk to this therapist all day. He's like, Sam, I know, is kind of working with the government. Maybe I can come with and I can partake of some of the missions that he's going on. And so lo and behold, there he is. And I love the banter the two of them have, and the fact that now apparently the army has categories for the enemies that the heroes face.
So you're talking about the big three.
The big three, exactly.
Androids, aliens, and wizards.
Wizards.
Apparently.
Yeah, and just the banter between the fact of a difference between a sorcerer and a wizard I thought was hilarious, and the fact that Bucky had read The Hobbit when it originally came out, and yes, folks, it actually did come out in 1937.
Yes, it did.
So I thought that was hilarious.
I can't picture, though, Bucky, a handsome guy like that, who was getting all the girls back in the day, much to Steve Rogers' chagrin, reading The Hobbit. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Well, I suppose it
seems like that was something more that Steve Rogers would have been doing back in the day.
He was kind of more the geekier guy of the two, for sure. I think so too. But I thought it was fun because I
was just gonna say because Steve was an artist, so you seemed like that would be more up Steve's alley than Bucky's.
True. And I thought it was hilarious that Sam actually thought that he meant the movies, where he's like, I know who Gandalf. He's like, you know who Gandalf is? Because wow, this guy has seen the Hobbit movies or the Lord of the Rings. Yet instead, Bucky turns it on him saying, I actually read the book, as in, hello, it does come from a book which was written quite a few years prior to the film. And then I just love the fact how they just, go back and forth. And it's interesting that Bucky takes it so personally, because the fact of Sam not picking up the shields to him is an insult, because it almost seems like he feels that it was Steve believing in him and by proxy believing in Bucky as well. And so he feels like you are basically destroying almost the values and the beliefs that I had just by doing that, by making that one gesture. And it's curious that Sam does not come out and say possibly why he did it, either of the fact of Steve being, such a paragon of everything that was good about the Avengers. I wonder whether they will address the fact of, I don't know if America would have been prepared for a black Captain America. I wonder whether he'll bring up that conversation with Bucky.
Well, that was something that the comics introduced. Back in the 80s, they did have a character that was on this commission that was responsible for replacing Steve Rogers as Captain America with John Walker. There was, and I actually reread the issue to make sure, and they had in the comics they had a black gentleman make that comment that, well, I don't think that America's ready for a black Captain America back in the day. So maybe that will come up. I think it'd be very interesting if it did. But keep in mind, this is now 40 years later, so maybe it won't. I don't know.
It could. I mean, because we have had instances, even in this episode, of open racism, or shall we say?
Well, I think that's going to be on Sam's part. I don't think it'll be something that'll come up. I think it'll just be more. Sam will keep getting all these reasons why he should become the first black Captain America.
No, I think so too. But I mean, my point is when Bucky's kind of saying to him, why didn't you take the shield? And Sam doesn't really give an answer. He doesn't say, because I felt that, Steve was too high, too lofty a standards to live up to.
Right.
He never really explains himself to Bucky,
No.
which is curious. I mean, because we have Bucky go on his whole rant of, Steve believed in both of us, and this kind of shows that you're kind of making all my values kind of topple like a house of cards.
Well,
and so there was that.
Bucky brings up the point that Steve gave you, meaning Sam, the shield.
The shield. Yeah.
He trusted you. He believed in you, and you let him down. But so? It seems to be, and this is something that comes up, I think, with the session with Dr. Rayner.
Yes.
That it's not so much that Bucky feels that Sam is letting Steve down.
No.
It's that Bucky feels that Sam is letting Bucky down.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because he's like, this was Steve's choice, so you are evidently Steve's heir. He has literally nominated you as his heir to the shield. And Bucky
he chose you over me, essentially.
Yeah, and Bucky, it really hurts him. Not to mention, you just see the way he talks to John Walker when he's like, just because you have the shield doesn't make you Captain America. And you can tell he really harbors great resentment to John, even though, John really doesn't have anything, it's not his fault that he was chosen.
Yeah, he's just the guy that they chose.
But Bucky shows major resentment towards him immediately, and Sam kind of does as well. But Bucky, we can see it's much more pronounced when it comes to his aversion with that. Not to mention when he hears the name Battlestar, he's telling the guy in the truck, "Okay, stop the truck. I'm out of here." Because he just had heard too much.
Well, one of my favorite bits about this, and I know we're going to talk about the new Captain America and Battlestar in our next topic, but I love the part when they were. Sam and Bucky were, after the truck fight, when they're walking along the road, and the new Captain America and Battlestar, they pull up in this Jeep or whatever, drive past. They're driving alongside them. They're trying to invite them into the Jeep. Hey, it's going to be a long road to walk to the airport. Why don't you just climb in? Yeah. And just they keep walking. They don't say anything. They just keep walking.
Yeah, at first they outright ignore
they're
them.
neither of them had time for these guys at all. And I thought it was a great moment.
Oh, it was, but there were, so many great moments. And also, then the big reveal that there are other super soldiers around, and Bucky reveals this to Sam, and understandably Sam is shocked.
Yes.
He's like, why didn't you ever tell us this? Kind of maybe putting some of the fans to rest with, why are we hearing about this now? Why wasn't it talked about before? And I think the writers covered themselves very, very well with the various explanations that Bucky gives. Because it could have been a huge open thing is, where were these other super soldiers during the time that everything else was happening? Why are we only hearing about this Isaiah now?
Right.
And did Steve know? And it was a great exchange. And I thought the way that Bucky revealed the fact of Isaiah was interesting, and it shows you, I guess, that Bucky is prepared to go down certain roads that Sam might not be prepared to go down, i.e., even towards the end when he's like, we have to go and talk to Zemo. If we want to get the flag smashers stopped, what better way to catch a thief than talk to a thief? Or maybe kind of think a little bit of Silence of the Lambs, where they're like, you have a serial killer, let's go and see another serial killer in jail and see what his opinion is.
Yeah, to get his help to catch the serial killer that we're looking for. Exactly.
Yeah,
so you brought up an interesting point, because when Bucky brings Sam to meet Isaiah, we'll talk about Isaiah, but I thought it was interesting because it seemed like Bucky was doing this intentionally to try to essentially snap Sam out of it and go, look, there's history here. History that you don't know about. And this is why it's important that Steve gave you the shield and passed on his legacy to you. And why it's important that you now need to take that back from this new Captain America.
Yes. He's very much showing him this, as you said, through these kind of people. Because obviously he's not planning on enlisting Isaiah's help.
No.
It's more than, I think, anything else, more than anything, like you said, to snap Sam out of it. And I actually had a question for you, Charles, because I'm not very familiar on this. Is Baltimore does it have a big black community? Is it known for having a big black community?
Yes, it does. It does have a big black community.
Okay, yeah, because I was just wondering, because seeing then what happens when the police.
I mean, I've never lived
up,
there personally, but from what I know of the city, yes, it does.
Yeah, because I was wondering that because when you get that scene where Bucky and Sam are having a fight and the police car pulls up and immediately they go after Sam.
Right.
And I thought to
they
myself,
profiled him essentially, yes.
And I thought to myself, why did we have to get? I felt so it hit very close to home, knowing what's been happening recently in the U.S.
Right.
I was like, come on, really?
Until one of the cops recognizes Sam as the Falcon.
Well, Bucky tells him, don't you know who he is?
Yeah, exactly. And so he whispers to the other cop, is like, oh yeah, that's the Falcon. Oh, and then the cop is all like, oh, hey, didn't know who you were. So
recognize you there.
So essentially, if Sam wasn't the Falcon, he would be really getting treated horribly by the cops after this.
Yeah, and already Sam was in a bad mood.
Right.
And not to mention, Bucky's like, they just want to see your documents. Like, I'm not going to show them anything to use the clean version of what Sam answers.
Well, he says, essentially he goes like, why do I need to show my ID?
Exactly.
So it's like, I'm just walking down the street.
And I'm having an argument with my friends.
Right. But unfortunately, Sam is making this, the act of, and it's so sad to say, walking while black down the road.
Really, I know. And the fact that the cops actually look at Bucky and say, is he bothering you?
Right. Yeah, that's their first assumption. Because they figure, well, for one thing, it's in a black neighborhood.
Yeah.
But because Bucky is white, they assume that Sam is hassling Bucky, which is just horrible. But that kind of thing, unfortunately, goes on in a lot of towns here in America.
It's very sad. And
for no damn reason, apart from racism.
I know. It's just disgusting. But I'm glad that Bucky, as I said, immediately, kind of points out to the guys, you're doing something completely stupid. It's completely wrong. And plus the guy's a celebrity. So you could be in serious trouble for arresting the Falcon.
Right.
Granted, then another cop car pulls up saying, "Hey, Bucky, you kind of skipped your therapy, so we're going to have to arrest you anyway."
Yeah. So it's kind of funny that they intend to arrest Sam just because he's black. Mm-hmm. But they end up arresting Bucky instead because he missed his therapy session.
That's right. And then obviously we get that hilarious scene where they arrive at the therapist office and Charles, I couldn't stop laughing. The two of them were even just the fact that when they're staring at each other and the therapist's like, you guys having a staring contest?
Well, one of the running gags in this appears to be, Sam making fun of Bucky because he's always staring. And that's kind of, a lot of fans have noticed, about Sebastian Stan that, his trademark Winter Soldier move is just to kind of stare intently at people. So they're playing this for laughs, essentially, now that it's a running gag that Sam is constantly picking on Bucky about this. And so when the therapist brings it up, Sam is just naturally like, oh, he's going to love this. when they do this soul-gazing experiment where they have to look at each other.
Oh yeah, and then also the fact
that
it
turns quickly competitive between the two.
Oh yeah, and the therapist, of course, immediately calls Bucky out on no childish remarks because I'm sure that Bucky was just waiting to unload on Sam with tons of childish comments as they have both have between each other throughout the course of the episode.
Right. Well, she's been treating Bucky, so she pretty much knows him, I think, by now.
Yeah. There's just so many great character moments between the two of them. Even when they actually are thinking of surprising the Flag Smashers before even knowing that they all are super soldiers. And I like the call back also to Sam calling Bucky White Panther, and he's like, it's White Wolf.
Actually, yeah, and Sam's like, what? White Wolf? Yeah. What's that? So yeah, that was a nod to that little extra credit scene, or the post-credit scene where Shuri refers to Bucky as White Wolf, while he's recuperating in Wakanda after he gets brought out of suspended animation.
And I believe that's actually a moniker he adopts at some point as well in the comics as well. Is that
I can't remember,
Charles?
I honestly can't remember. It might be, but
But other than that, I just loved everything about
It's not a
these
code
two.
name, but I think it's just maybe something that maybe he's called by certain people. I don't know.
And they have to make Red Wing more durable because seriously,
Yeah,
he gets destroyed. In both episodes, I believe he was destroyed.
Sam apparently needs a vibranium Red Wing because they make a gag about that Bucky just hates Red Wing and just wants to smash him because he's always in his face.
Yeah.
So he's like, that thing comes near me again, I'm gonna trash it.
Yeah, and in fact, then he actually compliments the Flag Smasher, saying, "I so wanted to do that." So I thought that was great. But yeah, between the two of them, I love the banter. But it seems like by episode's end, they're actually almost putting their differences aside because they have a common foe
Right.
to address. On one side, the new Captain America, and on the other, looking at the bigger picture, the Flag Smashers, and wanting to go after them. So it seems like they're kind of putting their banter aside to. We're not going to follow the new Captain America. We're going to do our thing, and so it's nice that by the episode's end, like we have to stick together because if not, we're not going to be able to get anything else done.
Yeah. So essentially, like they tell the therapist, and Sam tells the therapist, "Okay, look, we're going to go deal with this, and then after that, we can just like each go on a vacation and never have to see each other again."
Yeah.
So, but I'm sure by the end of this mission, that will not be the case. I'm guessing.
I don't think so.
Because I have watched a ton of buddy cop movies, and I know how this plays out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. It is
the two cops that can't stand one another eventually become best friends by the end of the adventure.
Exactly. I mean, it is very much a traditional trope, and I like that how dry Sam is about it. We're going, "Great talk, Doc," and kind of slapping Sam on the shoulder and getting out.
The metal arm, yeah, exactly.
It was great. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
So one thing before you move on, I did want to talk about going back to Dr. Rayner, because one of the things that comes out from Bucky is that we kind of talked about this a little bit already, is that Bucky isn't upset that Sam gave the shield, turned in the shield because betraying Steve's legacy. It turns out he's upset, he's bothered by, if Steve was wrong about you, then that means he was wrong about me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. His whole system of values just falls to pieces, and already the guy is not exactly in the best mental state right now.
No, because he's kind of, obviously he doesn't take this therapy very seriously, and he's probably concerned, at the moment he's on the straight and narrow, but as we know, because of what the Russians and everything did to him, and Hydra and all that he may be concerned that he might slip back into Winter Soldier mode.
Yeah.
So Steve, as far as he was concerned, Steve felt that he was better than that he could overcome that. So now he's worried that, if Steve was wrong about Sam becoming the new Captain America, then maybe he was wrong that I could not be the Winter Soldier again.
Yes, because Steve was the only one who thought that Bucky could reform and could go back to the best friend that he once knew, and we'd actually seen that obviously in Captain America and the Winter Soldier, and beyond that too, because Cap throughout has always defended Bucky no matter what, and so I think that's what Bucky is hanging on to right now. That's all he has right now.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's hanging on by a tenuous thread, and so now if his faith is, I think, being shaken because Sam's faith is shaken.
Yeah. And I suppose I will be interested to see where they will play with the fact of him being worried, as in Bucky being worried of being able to keep a lid on the fact of balancing the Winter Soldier persona and the Bucky Barnes persona.
Right. So something to pay attention, something to watch, I think. But I thought that was rather important. I thought we should talk about that.
Oh, for sure.
I didn't want to gloss that over because I think it's something that's going to play out in later episodes.
It may very well do. Unless, in fact, here was why I wanted to ask you, Charles. For all we know, would the famous code that is uttered by Baron Zemo still work at this point?
It's a good question. Because as far as we know, there was no way to deprogram Bucky, right? Mm-hmm. So unless maybe Doctor Strange or somebody else did something to that, to prevent that. But you would think that if they knew about it, they would try to figure that out, especially if Bucky wants to talk to Zemo, right?
Yeah, and I wonder whether somebody else might have gotten hold of that famous book or know the codes to activate the Winter Soldier, and whether that might come into play.
Yeah, so I think that's something that I think you bring up a great point. I think that's something we need to keep an eye out, that might happen at some point. Mm-hmm. So maybe Zemo will try to get control over Bucky once again.
Yeah, because we know he almost knows that code by heart at this point.
So hopefully, if Bucky wants to take Sam to go see Zemo, hopefully he's figured out a counter against that.
Yeah, he's hoping.
Yeah, let's hope it's not just impulsive, like, oh, hey, let's go talk to the guy who, like, mind-controlled me and turned me into a pet assassin. Yay! That's good, because I'm sure that'll turn out well, right?
Now, I'm hoping that Baron Zemo will kind of be like Hannibal Lecter through bar going, "Hello, Bucky."
Yeah, exactly. Quid pro quo, Mr. Bonds.
Yes.
I tell you things, you tell me things. And yes, I can't wait to talk Silence of the Lambs on Gold Standard. Just saying.
Oh, we can't wait either, Charles, believe you me.
It's a long, long wait, but I can't wait.
Yes, indeed.
All right, so that's neither here nor there. All right. Topic number 2, unless you had anything else about this topic.
No, I'm good. All right.
I know we talked a lot about it, but I thought there was a lot to unpack. So topic number 2, let's talk the new Captain America, John Walker, and his partner, Battlestar, who gets introduced, like I said, in this episode. So what did you make of Wyatt Russell's full debut as John Walker in this story, where, like I said, we talked about the showcase, the ceremony where he's introduced to America right on national television, and this later fight where the two of them end up encountering Sam and Bucky and get pretty much the cold shoulder treatment from Sam and Bucky in the process.
Yes, and
so what are your initial thoughts on the new Captain America in Battlestar?
Here's the odd thing. I was actually I don't know whether I was hoping or not, but that he would be more obnoxious and more arrogant and more kind of full of himself.
Right.
That did not turn out to be the case. He seems like a really nice guy who just wants to do good, because we see that obviously he served his country. Apparently he is outstanding when it comes to, he's basically the pinnacle of the human,
training.
Both physically and mentally. He just is in top shape, apparently, and so without
he doesn't have any superpowers. Yeah, that's exactly. One thing. That's one thing they made a point of saying.
Yeah, he's the peak of the perfect kind of guy in the sense of, I guess, kind of like Batman, if you will.
Right.
Where the guy's just worked out like there's no tomorrow and has trained both his mind and his body. And at the heart, he really seems like a good person, because all he wants to do is help the world, if you will, should we say, heal the world through the role of Captain America. And which is almost reminiscent of what Steve originally wanted to do when he became Captain America, was about the people and giving them hope. And so
the ideology is there.
Exactly.
The Captain America-like mentality is there. So did that surprise you that they made him so likable? Considering in the comics he wasn't that likable.
That's exactly it. And I think kudos to Marvel for throwing off my expectations and making it so unpredictable. Because I was thinking to myself, I'm sure that now when they show him, he's going to be sneering in his locker going, oh, those poor fools and all this kind of thing, those dumb people, the Captain America and all that rubbish. I was thinking he would be that kind of sneering jockey type, kind of a Flash Thompson, if you will, kind of the high school jock who got the job. But he's got a loving girlfriend. He's got a guy, a best friend who really believes in him, and he's genuinely nervous about this.
Yeah, in the comics, he was portrayed as essentially this Guy Gardner, conservative, pompous ass.
Yeah, it was your stereotypical jock.
Yeah, so they apparently decided, well, we don't want to, we'll get a lot of flack if we just make him this, conservative windbag.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure the Republicans would be all over that in a heartbeat. So they decided, interestingly, and I think this is probably a good thing, that they made him more likable, because that makes it harder to hate him.
That's right.
It's because you see him as this guy that's, okay, well, he wasn't trying to steal the title, the mantle. of Captain America. It was just given to him. And
because he excelled in his classes.
He was the best man for the job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard to hate the guy that's the most qualified if you're going to pick somebody to be the new Captain America. Mm-hmm. And but he's got doubts about it. He second guesses himself. He makes this comment, everybody in the world expects me to be something and I don't want to fail them. So, his girlfriend has to convince him, well, you need to just be yourself. Mm-hmm. And you'll step into that role. But, and then his friend Lemar, who's Battlestar, said, this is essentially the job. That this is what we signed up for. And because at first Walker, John Walker doesn't really see it that like this, I didn't want this, but Lamar's like, this is what you signed up for.
That's right. And he's like, I've been a captain before in the army, but not like this.
Yeah, by being the new Captain America, this is what it takes. So if you want to be Captain America, this is what you've got to do.
That's right.
You've got to be that symbol.
And just that thing that he keeps repeating, "Good morning, America," to himself and to make it sound right.
Right.
And so he seems so concerned about that, about projecting the right kind of feel. And we see that actually, obviously, when the whole kind of event and parade goes on, he nails it. Because he obviously gets, all the applause and he's signing autographs and action figures. And he does so well in the interview as well.
Yes,
he seems like he's really slid into the role.
Yeah, he stuck the interview. He was very witty and charming when he was asked questions like, what's the reaction to you being Captain America? Do eagles fly over you? Yeah, that whole thing. And he's like, yeah, they, even flags majestically wave behind me. So I thought, so it was very clever, and he pulled it off. So his introduction went well.
Yes, and I thought, oh, wow, this is a nice guy. And that's why I kind of almost feel bad for John, the way Bucky and Sam treat him, because they just don't want to accept him as the new Captain America.
They're very unfair to him, do you think?
Yes, they are. They almost see him as like the usurper to the throne. Right. It's like you've taken away something that was not yours. And Bucky actually makes it loud and clear that he does not like this guy. And Sam's pretty much right behind him. And I think they're not giving him a fair shake. I see where they're coming from, but they're not giving him a fair shake of it. And he probably would have come in handy seeing all the contacts that John has when it comes to the government and everything else. And ultimately, it's Sam and Bucky who drive a wedge between the two parties.
It is.
He's like, let's go get these guys. Like, nope, we're like freelancers. We work alone. And that's when we almost see the darker side of John, where he's like, don't you dare get in my way.
Yeah.
It's like it's on at this point. It's almost like war has been declared.
Yeah, pretty much, because Sam and Bucky are essentially, well, we're the cool Captain America club, and you guys can't be a part of it.
Yes, you're like the wannabes.
Exactly. You're a pretender. We're if anybody's going to be Captain America, it's going to be one of us, not you. Yeah. You don't deserve it. So, but obviously, as far as the story goes, John Walker acting as Captain America is going to be one of the reasons that gets Sam to start thinking, probably in his head, well, maybe I do want to be the new Captain America.
But it makes you think, though, isn't it? Kind of like the thing of something that is given to you, and then when somebody else has it, you want it more. Right. Whatever. It's like, why do you go out with that girl? I'll pass, etc. And then you see her with another guy. It's like, I want that girl now. You see what I'm saying?
Right. And I'm sure that's what Bucky's thinking, is that Sam is taking this for granted. Mm-hmm. So you took it for granted. Now there's this other guy. So now you need to take the shield back.
Yeah.
So, and this is probably going to, in certain experiences, like, what he's experiencing in Baltimore when he was getting hassled by the cops, that, and other things, meaning Isaiah, is that it's probably going to make him think, well, maybe I do, but then I want to be my own Captain America. I don't want to be the Steve Rogers Captain America. I want to be the Sam Wilson Captain America.
So I now want to open up a little bit of the theories here, Charles.
Yeah.
Would you question if
Sure.
by the end of the series, or at least this season,
Yeah.
John Walker is still Captain America, and we get to a moment where Falcon and Winter Soldier have accepted this?
Yes.
Would you be happy with that, or are you hoping that it will get to the point of by episode 6, Sam is the new Captain America and John is either kind of exit stage left or is just doing something else?
I don't really expect John Walker to continue as Captain America after this series.
Okay.
I think this whole series is about Sam realizing he needs to be Captain America and taking on the role.
Okay.
So I think what's going to happen is, through whatever circumstances, and this is speculation on my part.
Oh no, of course, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of theory time on the podcast.
But what I think is going to happen is Sam is going to, through various circumstances, Sam is going to do something that's going to make John Walker realize that Sam would be a better Captain America than he is.
So he hands the shield to him voluntarily?
I think so. I think that way it won't look bad that Sam's trying to take the guy's role.
Not to mention, yeah.
I think it's going to be that John is going to think, well, you make a better Captain America. You were the one that Steve Rogers chose, not me. And and then Sam will become Captain America. Probably, maybe taking Joaquin as the new Falcon.
Falcon. Mm-hmm.
And then John Walker will be like in the comics. He'll stick around, but he'll become the USA agent.
So we might actually be able to keep John Walker by the end of the show.
I think
so.
They'll either kill him off or John Walker will become the USA agent.
Depending, I suppose, on what Wyatt Russell's contract looks like.
Right.
Because he might have just signed for these 6 episodes and then he's done.
Yeah.
So it would be a shame if the character did get killed off. And I mean, obviously nobody can say for certain because the MCU does tend to, loves to play with canon and with stuff from the comics and do it their own way. So it could very well be that this is what we wanted to show you when it comes to John Walker. You're going to get 6 episodes of him, and that's it.
But I'm thinking if Marvel wants to do a Captain America movie with Sam as Captain America,
they would keep John Walker around. They
could potentially keep John Walker around as an ally for Sam.
I think very much that's how it's going to go.
As the USA agent.
I'm pretty much right there with the theories. Also because I think to myself, if Sam took it by force, seeing the current climate we're in, it would cause, I'm sure, a lot of problems.
Yeah, because essentially you'd have, the black guy stealing from the white guy.
And you definitely don't want to do that.
Which you would have, conservatives up in arms about. So, but if John Walker voluntarily gives the role over to Sam, that's a little bit easier for them to take, right?
Exactly. So it's going to be interesting. But all in all, I love these 2 characters. As I said, I love the fact that they really, I had certain expectations and they completely subverted them. And I really appreciate them for it. And I actually do like Battlestar as well. I think, at first he just seemed like, John's friend. And that was pretty much all he was doing. But here he has more of an active role. And I really enjoy the 2 of them together personally. So it was a nice introduction to.
So
to both
we'll see how it goes, but we're left with John Walker that in Battlestar saying, well, stay out of our way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You guys are going to go off and do your thing. We're going to do our thing, and just keep out of our way.
That's what I'm saying is war is definitely declared now.
Yeah.
So now next time they see each other, it won't be under friendly circumstances.
So we'll see what happens. I'm sure a lot of people are expecting John Walker to become a villain, but I don't think he's going to become a villain.
It's not so cut and dry. It's just a question of there's now a rivalry.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But also maybe because John Walker doesn't have powers, and neither does Lemar, maybe they'll get injured. And therefore, that's when Sam takes over the role of Captain America.
I now have just had the feeling of what happens if John Walker and Lemar walk in on Bucky and Sam talking to Zemo.
Right. Because remember...
That's going to cause major problems.
They made a point of saying that John and Lemar don't have powers yet.
Exactly. And then they talked that the power broker was brought up. So there's somebody who might be able to give powers to people.
So either they're going to get their powers or they're going to get really effed up by the Flag Smashers or somebody else.
Well, yeah, if the two of them walk in to go and take on the Flag Smashers, good luck with that.
Right.
With having no powers, good luck.
Well, they held their own on that truck fight, but that's, that's
for the most part, yes.
It was, that was just more, I think, because they didn't expect the new Captain America in Battlestar to show up. So,
yeah.
All right. Anything else about these characters?
I'm just really looking forward to seeing more of them. And as I said, I expect the moment where Sam and Bucky might actually free Zemo because they need him. And Sam and Lemar and John just happen to walk in, seeing the three of them together. And then just, it's going to be bad. They're like, escape prison, and then they're going to have to go on the run again, and the story of their lives.
Unless we go back to our theory from the first episode that Baron Zemo is behind the Flag Smashers.
And he's just maybe playing dumb at the time. And well, I guess it will be revealed in episode 3 when they do get to talk to Baron Zemo.
So we'll find out. Stay tuned, everybody. All right, topic number 3. Let's talk Isaiah Bradley. Now we ran down the history from the comics. So what did you make of when Bucky, they go to Baltimore, and Bucky, they take him to Isaiah Bradley's house. The grandson answers the door. Initially, the grandson doesn't want to let him in. But Bucky says, well, hey, remind him about the skirmish that we had in Korea.
Yeah.
And so that lets him in.
That's right. Yeah, I think he says the guy in the barn is here to see him or something along those lines.
Right. The guy you knew from Goyang.
Yeah.
So they go inside and they meet Isaiah Bradley, who's, like I said, played by the great Carl Lumbly, who is just fantastic in this role. Once I figured out that they were making Carl Lumbly, because I knew he was cast for this show, but I didn't know what character he was going to play. And once I found out that he was playing Isaiah Bradley, I'm like, holy crap, that's amazing. That's awesome.
Very well said. And not
because I was a big fan of him. Like he was on Alias. He was John Jones, the Martian Manhunter on Justice League. The voice of, he was Mirren Jones on Supergirl. And, being a big fan of the Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the 8th dimension, I know him as John Parker. So
yes. No, I had a feeling
when I first
Buckaroo
became a fan of his. Yeah.
I had a feeling the Buckaroo Banzai reference would come out there for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Charles. You and Zan having recently discussed that on Drunk Cinema, so definitely.
Thanks for the plug, by the way. Yay.
You're totally welcome. I mean, much respect to that show. But I'm right there with you. Mr. Lumley is fantastic, and I actually obviously still had his recent performance as John Jones' father from Supergirl ingrained in my mind.
Right.
He's one of the better parts of that show. I love the show, but he's definitely one of the MVPs in that show because every single moment.
I missed that character. I thought that character was fantastic for that show. And I was so upset they killed him off. But
I was literally.
I think that was a big mistake for the show.
It was because Lumley just brought that gravitas to the show, which it was very much needed, and he brings gravitas to this character just as much.
Right.
And just the emotion that you feel through the character of Isaiah it hit me really like a shot, because the moment where you see he's literally close to tears when he recounts what the government did to him. And the fact that they wouldn't stop. And first because he seems to start off with almost this rather humorous anecdote about him chasing Bucky during the Korean War.
Yeah, it's like I ripped his arm off and somehow he grew it back. And...
yeah, he's like, I'm one of the ones who came closest to capturing this guy.
Right. And apparently that's why he let Bucky in, because he wanted to kind of see Bucky again.
Yes, but first though, it seemed almost like two friends recounting old stories, or two ex-soldiers recounting old war stories. And it seemed like very humorous and almost like a, light-hearted moment. But then when he talks about the fact that he was experimented on after having chased Bucky, I seriously felt like a pain in my chest when I was watching this, because you could literally see the performance. The guy is close to tears, remembering how traumatic that experience was, and you can't blame him for being so sour about not wanting to see anybody. And we see that he still retained his strength.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, you still don't want to mess with this guy. He might be older, but you don't want to mess with this guy.
Well, Carl Lumley, he's 69 years old, so he's a veteran actor, and he's just so good. Like you said, he has so much gravitas, and, he's very sympathetic as an actor. You really feel for the guy, and Lumley's performance really shines through. He makes you feel Isaiah's pain.
Very much.
That history of being experimented upon, and the bitterness that he has from that period, that the way he was treated as a human being.
And on both sides, no less, both by Hydra and the other and others as well.
Right, and then Bucky being on the other side, so essentially they were enemies. And so here they are all these decades later, and probably feeling a little resentful that Bucky still looks young because of being in suspended animation, that now Isaiah's an old man with a lot of regrets. But he's still willing to confront Bucky, and Bucky is like, I'm not the killer I was. And Isaiah's attitude is like, well, you think you just wake up and not be a killer?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't work like that. Or maybe it does for you because you're white. But
once again, we get the social commentary about that whole thing,
yeah.
Which is, And you do wonder whether maybe the serum has affected him as well, because the fact that his grandson is there.
Right.
Because you mentioned also seeing the comics. On the comic side, he does tend to suffer from something akin to Alzheimer's, I believe it is.
Yeah, that's what we talked about during the trivia, yeah.
Yeah. And so maybe it's almost like an old man Logan kind of situation, where Wolverine is being poisoned by the adamantium as he gets old.
Yeah.
So it might almost be, once again, obviously like the X-Men being Marvel, it might be another thing of as you get older, the stuff they injected you with will slowly kill you. So it might be that also he's suffering from that too. So he's got that going on as well, added to all his other woes.
Exactly. So, but he's got his grandson looking after him. And
yeah.
I'm guessing they're going to just go ahead and, if they do introduce Eli Bradley as Patriot, they'll probably just go ahead and skip the MGH hormone drug.
Yes.
And just go straight to the fact that he got a blood transfusion from his father or grandfather, I guess.
I think so too. I mean, I guess the way to go about this is maybe either they sadly kill off the Isaiah character and Eli, finds a way to contact us saying, I want to join, because my grandfather did this, this, and this.
Or I can help, or something.
Or his grandfather gets murdered.
Right.
And he wants to avenge his grandfather's death.
I think that's a good way too, that maybe, he gets, we'll see what happens. I mean, we only have 4 more episodes after this.
True.
So they may not have time, but we'll see.
Granted, at least the runtime is a little bit more generous compared to WandaVision, which is great.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, that's true. With these 6 episodes as opposed to 9, we're getting actual decent episode running times, which is nice.
Yes.
All right, anything else about Isaiah?
No, I just really hope that this is not the last we see of Carl Lumley, because he's just a joy to watch.
He's so damn good. I'll never get tired of watching this guy. He's so good. All right, topic number 4, final topic. Let's talk Carly Morgenthau and the Flag Smashers. So this probably won't take too long, but we do get some interesting developments. We find that apparently, for whatever reason that's yet to be revealed, that Sam and Bucky, they go to, to Munich, I guess. They track them down to Munich, and they find that, they go to the warehouse, and they find that the Flag Smashers are loading some kind of vaccine into these trucks.
Yes, or medical equipment and medication and what have you, yes.
Yeah, so we don't know what that's for, but it looks, something, is it super soldier serum or is it something else? We don't know.
Or is it maybe ingredients to make more? Maybe the power broker that they mentioned needs these ingredients for all we know.
Could be. So maybe they're trying to build, a super soldier army, perhaps.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but obviously that sets off the big events where the Flag Smashers and and Sam and Bucky and Captain America and Battlestar are fighting across those two trucks. So we also find out that apparently Carly Morgenthau is getting some very interesting, threatening texts from someone.
Yes.
That says that the texts say it's from an unknown number, of course, but they say, "You took what was mine. I'm going to find you and kill you." So the question obviously is, who is sending her those texts and why?
Yes.
So what did Carly take that was his or hers, and why is there this animosity between these two?
Yes.
And who is the mysterious unknown caller? Or texter, as the case may be.
It definitely poses that's quite a puzzler, as they would say.
Yes. No, any theories?
Because my first instinct would go to maybe someone's given Zemo a phone and he just wanted this kind of thing. Because as I mentioned before, he seems somewhat of an anarchist himself, and the fact of one people, one
one world, that kind of thing.
One world. So you wonder whether it could be that, unless it's another super soldier whose powers were taken away from him or her and put into Carly. It's hard to say at this point, Charles. I mean, I'm just really kind of I don't know. I'm at a loss when it comes to potential.
Or maybe it's an actual flag smasher that Carly took over their organization.
Yeah, or maybe it was somebody who wanted to be the leader of the Flag Smashers, and he or she was ousted from their position by Carly.
But I kind of find it interesting that Carly is under threat now. There's somebody, there's another player out there. The question is, well, who is it? Personally, my prime suspect is Baron Zemo.
That was my first thought, because I wonder. But the thing is, would they allow him a phone in prison? Maybe, unless he's a very resourceful man, so he could probably get his hands on a phone.
Or I'm sure that he could always tell somebody to text a message for him.
Yeah, because we know the guy's connected. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he's going to find a way if he wants to.
Yeah.
So we'll see. All right, and then let's see. Oh yeah, lastly, we saw that when they're apparently in Slovakia, the Flag Smashers get tipped off that they've been caught, and as they're loading the supplies into a plane, and one of them offers to stay behind, who apparently is somebody that Carly seems to care a lot about.
Yes.
So, but she watches as he's gunned down, and I'm sure that won't set well for her mental state going forward.
Oh no.
So, any other thoughts about Carly and the Flag Smashers? Like I said, there wasn't a lot, but I thought we should.
But here's the thing. Just like with John Walker, I suppose one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. And it seems like the Flag Smashers have a lot of sympathizers throughout the world. There are other people who believe in their mission and in their vision of one world, one people, no more borders. We're all, it's very much everybody's equal. There's no such thing as, you're American, you're Italian, you're British, you're German. We're all humans, if you will, and all people. And so evidently they do have quite the support. I mean, we see that there are safe houses apparently throughout the world. I'm assuming, aside from the one in I believe it's Slovakia, I think is where the safe house is.
Right.
Where the chap says, my wife set up these beds for you, and there's food and computers. So you're thinking there are probably quite a few safe houses of these sympathizers of the Flag Smashers. And to be honest, they don't seem obviously like your stereotypical evil terrorists. You think to yourself, maybe Carly actually was a good person once and just went extreme on the concept of the things were better during the blip. And I hope we get more of her backstory. I'm sure we will.
Right.
But it seems like there is almost some good to her. Or rather, in her eyes, she's doing good. She's pursuing a political agenda of, I'm giving freedom to the world. I'm freeing the world from their preconceived barriers. And I like that. I like that they didn't make them the typical terrorists you would maybe get in your 90s action movies.
Right.
But what a surprise that the perceived villain
they don't get their hands on a nuclear bomb and threaten to to murder, blow up an entire country or what have you.
However, the villain is still British. That hasn't changed.
Nope. They're so good at it.
Or the head of the operation is British.
Yeah, well, we have Erin Kellyman. She's obviously Irish, so
yeah,
hooray for my people. That
exactly.
So, what do you make of her as this leader of the Flag Smashers?
She's definitely a very charismatic leader, evidently, because you see this rather unassuming, young lady.
Like how did someone so young get in charge of this organization?
And even Bucky obviously is taken for a complete loop when he sees her because him and Sam think she's a hostage.
Right.
Because they jump into the truck, and obviously Carly plays her role to perfection by kind of looking scared almost at first and kind of demure. And he's like, "Don't worry, I'm kind of here to save you." And she puts that big grin on her face, and boom, we see Bucky fly out the truck.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, obviously, she has these powers. We don't know exactly how she got these powers. I'm presuming that maybe, since the power broker was mentioned, maybe she got them from the power broker. So maybe the power broker is the one texting her.
Could also be that she decided to kind of steal his tech or his stuff and kind of gave it around to people, saying, "I need an army of super soldiers to achieve my goal."
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
But
I really liked her. She's very charismatic.
But I agree. Yeah, she is. I think we obviously need more backstory on her, what her deal is. Maybe we'll get that next episode.
Yeah. But, because there seems like she's got a story to tell.
And I'm wondering, what she's going to be doing now that someone she apparently cared about was gunned down at the end of this episode. How that's going to affect her.
There are a lot of threads at play. I think they've definitely set a challenge for themselves on how they're going to bring it all together in a cohesive story. Bearing in mind you only have 6 episodes. If it's 6 episodes and one and done, they've set the challenge. I think it'll be interesting to see if they're up for the challenge.
Well, as I recall, you said the very same thing about WandaVision.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are again.
That's right.
Waiting to see if they'll stick the landing.
Yeah, they didn't disappoint for the most part on WandaVision. And look, I'm going to maybe say they're not going to disappoint us on this one, but it's still always, they always like to keep me kind of the tension going, please be good, please be good. I'm loving what you're doing so far, but stay good for the next 4 episodes.
Right. So far, I'm all in. I love this.
Same here.
This feels like, hey, it's a new Captain America movie to me, which is great. Only without, Steve Rogers as Captain America.
Do you think this would maybe have played well had this been the first MCU TV show compared to WandaVision? Folks might not have been so, this is such a different show and everything else.
I think it would have satisfied people quicker because remember, people weren't really buying into WandaVision until episode 3.
That's right, because they were like, what is this weirdness?
Yeah, they didn't understand it. But then once they got it, they were like, oh, this is awesome. Mm-hmm. But it did take them 3 episodes to really get into the premise. So with this one, it starts off a much more straightforward Marvel Cinematic Universe. So they probably would have liked this being the first show.
Yeah,
and it was obviously intended to be. So it's much more palatable to what MCU fans expect, I guess, than WandaVision. Mm-hmm. So we'll see if it's as good as WandaVision, though. So now it has something to live up to.
Yes.
All right. Anything else about this episode before we move on?
No, I all in all, as I said, I very much enjoyed it. It was well balanced. We got only one shot of the wonderful Daniel Bruhl, who's another amazing actor.
Yes, he is.
And I will have the chance to probably gush about him next episode because I love this man to death. He's so fantastic in everything he does. So I'll keep that for the next time.
Table it, because I get the feeling that Daniel Bruhl is going to be doing some serious scene chewing next episode.
And I can't wait. So I'm going to I'm going to keep my love for Daniel Bruhl for next episode. But other than that, I really enjoyed it and it set up some great things. And I'm hoping possibly a certain Agent Carter will make Agent 13 will make her appearance in the next episode.
Yeah, hopefully, because that's what character I've been waiting for is Sharon Carter to return, and we know that she's going to be here. Just a question of when she shows up. So we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
As I said, I'm waiting for my Sharon.
Yep. We are all waiting for Sharon. All right. Share and share alike, right? All right. So, favorite quotes. Do you have any favorite quotes?
I did have a couple. The
Okay.
first one was between Bucky and Isaiah, where you actually touched up on it, Charles, where Bucky's like, I'm not a killer anymore. And Isaiah's response, you think you can wake up one day and decide who you want to be? It doesn't work like that. Well, maybe it does for folks like you.
Yeah.
That was a good one. And then the other one between John and Sam, it's taken from part of the wonderful dialogue they have while they're on the Jeep.
Right.
And John says to Sam, yeah, violent revolutionaries aren't usually good for anyone's cause. And Sam's like, usually said by the people with the resources.
Right. And then John's like shoots back, well, we have a lot of resources.
Resources.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's see. I liked, Sam and Bucky talking about Doctor Strange. So Sam says, Doctor Strange, and then Bucky finishes, is a sorcerer. And Sam replies, a sorcerer is a wizard without a hat. Think about it, right? I'm right. I just came up with that. It's crazy, but look, that's not the point. These guys aren't magic, all right? They use brute force just like you, the incredibly annoying guy in front of me with a staring problem.
I love that.
That was great. And let's see what else. Bucky with Sam, once again, where Bucky tells Sam, Steve believed in you. He trusted you. He gave you that shield for a reason. That shield that is everything he stood for. That is his legacy. He gave you that shield and you threw it away like it was nothing. And Sam's like, shut up. Bucky continues, so maybe he was wrong about you. And if he was wrong about you, then he was wrong about me.
And the way he delivers that line, you can hear he's almost close to tears.
Right. Yeah, it was really good. It was a big breakthrough moment, I think, for Bucky a little bit.
That's when I sent the WhatsApp to my buddy Sebastian saying, Seb, you nailed it, buddy. That was awesome.
So, Sebastian Stan, if you're out there listening, and I really hope you are, you really need to send an autograph photo to DJ Nick.
Yeah.
Because
I'll start answering my WhatsApps, man.
And you should sign it, your pal Seb. I'm just saying.
Exactly. Agreed.
All right. So I'm just putting that out there in case you happen to be listening. I hope you are. Or if you know Seb Stan, if you stand Seb Stan, yes. You might want to drop him a line and let him know for us.
That's right.
All right. So what's your rating for this?
I'm going to give this 8.5 out of 10 smashed Red Wings.
Oh, you totally stole mine, but I have another one. No. I have another one, though. So, yeah, that was exactly, I was going to do Smash Red Wing Drone, so that's all right. That's good. But I'm right there with you. Another 8.5 out of 10 staring contests.
Even better.
Stare fights, if you will. Yeah. So, Phantom Zone news, I only have one thing, that Batwoman recently recast Wallace Day as Kate Kane. So, after several episodes of the second season with Javicia Leslie playing Ryan Wilder, so now they've decided, well, Kate is actually alive. And the episode Survived Much Worse introduced a bandaged and unrecognizable but very alive Kate Kane, who is now played by Wallace Day, who I became a fan of when she played Nyssa Vex on Krypton, the sci-fi series Krypton.
That's exactly where I got from. Yeah, and Charles, that show is a mess. I know you're not following it as much. I'm watching it, because I guess I'm a completist, so I want to see it till the end. It's a mess. And we might talk about it a little bit more on Fandoms and during the lull between shows. We might touch up on Batwoman or the status quo of Batwoman.
We can catch up on it, yeah. But for right now, since you're watching and I'm not, so that's how you describe it as a mess right now.
Well, yeah, because the whole concept of they kind of killed off the Kate Kane character in the first season, and now they're like, surprise, surprise, Kate Kane is alive. That's the whole thing. That's the running theme right now. So the title for the arc for the second season could be In Search of Kate Kane. That is literally what the season is.
Okay. Yeah, because I think, and they keep saying, though, that Javicia Leslie will continue to be Batwoman.
So they pose the thing of, will there be two Batwomen?
So they're trying to have it both ways here.
Like, yeah, they want to have their cake and eat it.
Like we knew we pissed off the Kate Kane fans by not recasting.
Yeah.
So, we introduced this new Batwoman, but, our ratings have not been great. So we're bringing Kate back, played by a different actress. So my question is, well, why didn't you do that from the start of season 2?
Exactly. Why didn't you do that in the first place? Rather than scrap your lead completely with a whole new character.
Right.
Rather, recast her immediately. And what's wrong with you?
And it's not like the American public isn't stupid. We know that when other actors sometimes step into other roles played by previous actors. So, if it's a different actress playing Kate Kane, we'll get it. You don't have to go through the trouble of like, oh, well, she had her face all mangled up. So therefore now she looks like a completely different woman.
Or I'm looking at you, Black Lightning, with
Right?
Doctor Who regeneration.
Yeah, exactly, right? These people seem to forget that, back in the 80s, there was this show called Superboy. And the first season of that, the Superboy was played by John Haynes Newton. But they ended up recasting, and Gerard Christopher took over with season 2 because nothing happened. It was a different actor. We just accepted, okay, this guy's playing Superboy from now on. No big deal.
In film franchises, it happens all the time.
Right.
We look at the Batman, the Nolan trilogy.
Yeah, how many people played Batman? And we get it. They didn't have to, have Bruce Wayne go through a plane crash.
Well, and then the fact that Rachel Dawes' character in the Nolan trilogy was changed after one movie.
Right.
And nobody really seemed to mind.
Nobody cared. Nobody cared.
Exactly.
So I never understood why they didn't, Caroline Dries, horrible showrunner for Batwoman. Why she didn't just do this from the start. Everybody would have been happy. It would have been fine. The show would have continued. I would still be watching. So I don't get it.
It really is the Occam's razor situation, Charles,
Right.
The most logical situation, the simplest solution is usually the right one.
Exactly. Anyway. All right. Fantasy fan mail. So real quick, we have 2 people writing in. So once again, we have Holly Mack writing in about the Falcon and Winter Soldier, the Star-Spangled Man. So Holly writes in, hey, Charles and Nick. Well, hi, Holly.
Hey, Holly.
What another great episode in this mini-series so far. Love the opening with a marching band playing to the opening theme music. Of course, we get the same pomp and circumstance for the new Captain America like we did back in the 1950s. I think she means 40s, but World War II, back in the 40s. I can understand Bucky's anger at Sam for giving up the shield, and that moment they had in the holding cell with Raynor for an impromptu therapy/couples therapy session had me laughing and getting more insight into both their characters. Bucky asking Raynor about what rule number 2 was probably a good foreshadowing of what's to come.
She brings up a good point because Bucky at one point goes, what was rule number 1 again? And she's like, don't hurt anybody. He's like, so long, Doc.
Yep. So it's like, I'm going to go off and hurt somebody. So.
Yes.
Bucky and Sam finally reunited, and the lethal weapons vibes I was getting between the two of them were quite strong.
Mm-hmm.
Love the big 3 comment about fighting either android, alien, or wizard, and the argument that ensued. That was a fun one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when Bucky winds up jumping out of the plane without a chute and using his arm to break the fall.
That was great.
That was great, but why did you bother with that? You could have. Okay, there wasn't another parachute. Seriously, the plane only had 1 parachute.
True, and I guess they didn't want to use the Iron Man quote because Sam's like, I do have a plan.
Right.
Expecting to say attack, and he just jumps out the plane.
Yeah, pretty much. So that was good. I half expected him to say, I'm getting too old for this S. I'm censoring here. So, that was Danny Glover's line for the Lethal Weapons movies.
Of
course, Bucky and John Walker would have some past meaning we don't know about yet. Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Lemar's Battlestar nickname. Think you need to go back to the drawing board. Yeah. It was not great back in the 80s when they introduced it, let alone now.
It's almost as bad as Battle Guy in Kick-Ass 2.
Yeah. I commented loud on the screen after you said Battlestar with, what, Galactica? I think a lot of people did.
Yes.
Bucky was 100% done with John and Lemar. I think Sam was too, but he was being a tad nicer about it. Also, not too surprised that there are other super soldiers out there, either U.S. government ones and Hydra ones. I'm thinking this is going to be a U.S., Bucky, Sam, and whoever else they wind up recruiting versus them, and us versus them, Captain Light and company. Bucky and Sam heading off to see Zemo at the end of the episode. This is going to be some interesting upcoming episodes. Is it Friday yet?
I hear you, Holly. I'm right there with you.
Well, like I said, we got 4 days, so hang tight as we're recording this on a Sunday. So I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you so much, Holly. It's always a joy having you write in.
We really appreciate you writing in. Unlike someone else who isn't writing in, which we'll find out in our next letter.
Yes.
So take it away, DJ Nick.
It's from the wonderful David K. Proctor. So,
Hi, Dave.
Hey, Dave. Thanks as always for writing in. He starts off with, hello, Fandom Zone hosts. I hope you've had a good week. I thought this week's episode was a good early chapter in the book. It builds nicely, but isn't super exciting on its own. It illustrates the turmoil in Falcon and Bucky's world. It builds up and humanizes the new Captain America and reinforces that people are complex. Very true. You first want to hate the new Cap, then he grows on you, and then you suspect you were right in the first place.
Right.
Nice. Preston America as a hero should be good enough at heart to be worthy or wielding Thor's hammer, Mjolnir. I suppose so. Guess you might have to do the hammer test with John Walker. Anything short will be just a dude in a suit with an unstoppable frisbee. Is this what is meant by ultimate frisbee? I guess that elevates the shield, but as a symbol, I think it is elevated. There is only one, and replication would be super undoable unless the Wakandans owed you a giant favor. Well said.
Yep.
Have a good week. Thank you, David K. Proctor. P.S. Where's your letter, Jesse?
Ooh.
Shots fired.
Shots fired, exactly. So, yep. Dave calling out Jesse because he's not writing in. So you got to wonder if he's listening, too. So, all right. Well, hopefully he's listening, and hopefully now that Dave has called him out, he'll write in. So maybe, hopefully, we'll have something next week. Stay tuned. Yes. The world waits in anticipation. But thank you, guys. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Dave. We always love hearing from you. At least you've got our back, unlike a certain, occasional co-host on the Phantom Zone.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate the dedication of you folks writing in every week.
We do. We really do. And I hope to hear from more of you out there. We didn't get Ray this time, so a little disappointed by that, but that's okay. Hopefully Ray will check in later.
Yeah.
Or, somebody else too. We'd love to hear from you. So if you want to be like Holly and Dave, and you do, especially if you're named Jesse Jackson, write to us at phantomzonecast@gmail.com. That's phantomzonecast@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Twitter at phantomzonecast on Twitter. Facebook, of course, the Phantom Zone Podcast, or Instagram at Phantom Zone Podcast. And Nick, how about you? Where can they find you and hear more of, your theories about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or all kinds of wonderful movie discussion and superhero movie discussion that you do?
Well, thank you for that wonderful setup there, Charles. Well, folks, first off, if as you know, Jesse is a big fan of Bruce Springsteen. If you're fans of country music, I do host the Whiskey and Cigarettes show, where we play all sorts of country, today's traditional, and everything else in between. If you'd like to check that out and find out when and where to tune in, you can visit our website. That's whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. As Charles kindly mentioned, I do also host Happiness and Darkness, the superhero movie podcast, where we discuss all superhero movies under the sun. If you'd like to join me there for a discussion, you can email us at happinessanddarknesshow@gmail.com, as Doctor Strange makes his appearance on my screen, which is always beautiful. and also,
he's a wizard.
Exactly, he's a wizard. and when it comes to movies, of course, I do also co-host Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast with Rachel Friend and Zan Sprouse. We're going through all the Best Picture winners from 1927's Wings to present day. If you'd like to join us on that, you can email us at goldstandardoscars@gmail.com. We're on Facebook and Twitter. And when it comes to Happiness and Darkness, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the Instagram. And when it comes to you, Charles?
Well, Nick. As for me, of course, at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of geeky things. Come on, you. The button's not working. Why are you not working?
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn Good Coffee and Hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on the Phantom Zone. So all kinds of comic book news, sci-fi news, news about other podcasts I do for Southgate Media Group, including, well, hey, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where Jesse Jackson is sort of special guest companions. We talk all kinds of Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, Big Finish audios, and more. And, recently DJ Nick was on not too long ago where we talked Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD. Had a lot of fun with that.
Great fun.
It was a lot of fun. And then coming up this coming week is going to be our 225th episode where not one but two special guest companions join us. So we're going to have Holly Mack, whom you've heard here on the Phantom Zone podcast. She's going to be joining us and also along with Zan Sprouse, my wonderful co-host on Ghost with the Twin Peaks podcast and Drunk Cinema, as the four of us are going to be discussing the Three Doctors.
Very nice. That's definitely going to be a conversation. We're looking forward to hearing that one, Charles.
Exactly. So essentially the 10th anniversary celebration of Doctor Who from way back in 1973. From the John Pertwee era, featuring, of course, John Pertwee and Katie Manning as Jo Grant, the return of Patrick Troughton as the second Doctor, and little cameos here and there from William Hartnell as the first Doctor. Yeah. Who sadly was, he's feeling very ill at the time, but at least he did some appearances here and there throughout the episode. So it's a great classic story. It's one that Holly and Zan both expressed interest in talking about, and I didn't have the heart to kind of push it off for something bigger. So I guess our 225th episode, I think it's a good place to talk about it.
And you couldn't have chosen two better people.
Of course.
They're both two fabulous ladies. I can attest to both having had Holly on both Gold Standard Patreon episodes and also on, of course, Happiness and Darkness. So wonderful person. We know how awesome Zan is, of course. I don't need to say more, do I, Charles?
No. I love talking to Zan, and it's been a while since I've talked with Holly on Next Stop Everywhere, so I'm really looking forward to that. She's always so good about writing in emails to that show and this show here on the Phantom Zone podcast. So I'm always looking forward to talking to Holly. She's just probably one of the sweetest people that I know.
Amen to that. And hey, listeners, Charles might be joining Holly alongside with myself, Rachel Friend, and Zan next month. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that.
You want to hype that a little more, or no? You're going to table that for now?
All I'm going to say is it takes place in a galaxy far, far away. That's what I'm going to say.
All right. Sounds good. Can't wait for that. All right. So also Ghost with the Twin Peaks podcast. Like, hey, I do with Zan Sprouse where we talk all things Twin Peaks and David Lynch. And we just posted our second episode that we review on the air, this really obscure, very short-lived ABC sitcom series from 1992 because, hey, it's sort of Twin Peaks related. We have a lot of Twin Peaks actors, and Mark Frost and David Lynch were executive producers on the show. So, of course, we're going to talk about it. So we're having a lot of fun with that. We have one more episode to go, and then we'll have to figure out what to talk next. So stay tuned for that. Hope you check it out. It's a very, very deep dive that we're doing, but it's been a lot of fun talking about this, something that probably would normally be overlooked by a lot of people. A little bit of lost ABC television history, I think. And then, of course, Drunk Cinema that Zan and I also do. We have adult beverages, adult conversation, and we go and watch our favorite movies. Recently, for our 007th episode, we discussed Goldfinger, the James Bond classic starring Sean Connery. And now that hopefully Zan will be feeling better, we'll be recording our 8th episode, hopefully this coming week, where we discuss Forbidden Planet, the 1950s sci-fi classic starring Leslie Nielsen.
I really hope that works out, Charles, because I'm really looking forward to this discussion of Forbidden Planet. And, usually it does take place during the time when, Zan is with us in the Gold Standard Theatre, so she always gets to have her double feature, if you will, because she goes to the Gold Standard Theatre, talks about Best Picture winning movies, and then she's off the drunk cinema theatre to enjoy, to imbibe, and just kind of cut loose with you. So it's great.
So Drunk Cinema is essentially the after party to Gold Standard of the Oscars podcast.
Correct. Yes.
And we all know how Tony Stark feels about after parties. So, all right. So everybody, please check that out. I would definitely appreciate it. I know Zan would as well. So, so you got a lot. You're going to have a lot of Zan this coming week. So stay tuned, guys. And more Zan is always a good thing, of course.
Amen. Yes.
All right. I don't have to tell you that. Other than that, Nick, thank you so much. Had a lot of fun talking this with you, obviously. We've talked a lot today, but coming up next time on the Phantom Zone, episode 212, as we discuss The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 3, which, given the teaser at the very end of this episode, the cliffhanger, we're going to see a lot of Baron Helmut Zemo, and we'll see what he's been up to. I'm sure it's no good, and get his reunion with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier next week. Yeah. Looking forward to it?
Yeah, very much so, because, they haven't seen each other since Civil War, so it's going to be very interesting to see. And you mentioned, Charles, about Daniel Bruhl being a scene stealer. I have a feeling Daniel Bruhl is going to show off once again what an amazing actor he is in this too.
I'm sure he will, and hopefully we'll get the return of Emily Van Camp as Sharon Carter as well. Fingers crossed.
Because she's been hyped so much, it's like, come on, make it with the Agent 13 already.
Right. Yeah, I kind of miss Sharon Carter around, so I kind of want to know what her reaction is, especially with everything going on. I want to get her thoughts on this. So looking forward to her return. So everybody, thank you so much for listening. Thanks to Holly and Dave for writing in. Hope other people write in. Looking at you, Jesse Jackson. We'll see if he does. You got to find out what happens. So come on back next time, episode 212, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 3, right here on the Phantom Zone podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Ciao.